And hello. Welcome to the show. This is Dan Lutz, and I'm here on another broadcast. It's a very spectacular day because of some news that I just heard. This is May 6th, 2019, and I just heard from Tank that it is officially over. The GCR is kaput. It's done. It's gone. And it's all because of us. We'll see if it's all because of us. But I'm sure that we had an impact on the dismantling of the genocide program known as the GCR. So, and actually, I just sent the message to Tank. Now, I have not heard exactly the same. As Tank, he sent me a link just before getting on, so wasn't able to hear it. And it has to do with there is a GCR broadcast that's done called Restored Republic. I could probably cue it up for a little bit, but I don't know what it would say. I'll just launch it for a second, and then we'll get that going. Again, this happened just before. It's only 10 minutes long.
Below is a summary of information from the internet. It would be up to the individual reader to do their own research and decide whether or not it is valid.
And that's how it always starts.
Patience is a virtue. Having virtue is a sign of a good moral being. Good moral beings have the power to overcome evil and change the world. Judy note, this would be my last Restored Republic via GCR report, as the title has come to fruition. The Restored Republic was on the horizon, all needed to complete the RV, GCR was done, Intel was frozen, and I have been advised to keep it quiet. Your guess was as good as mine as to when redemption notices and 800 numbers would be released. Read the below for clues on how to play that game, including reports of the last week as shown in links at the bottom. RV, GCR problems have been resolved with exchange centers on standby, paymaster accounts liquid, rates locked into bank screens and trading live. The Iraqi dinar and USTN started trading May 1st. Certain whales have been paid out so they could pay others.
Okay, we don't have to listen to the rest of it because I guess the real point of that is now that those are reports that are coming out all the time from Restored Republic. And I used to listen to them. It was I'd listen to that one. I'd listen to Benjamin Fulford and Neil Keenan, on occasion. And there's a couple other, a couple others from, like I say, Gary Larrabee. My inspiration for doing my first broadcasts. I did a 30 days straight. Hey, Tank, how's it going?
Everything's great. How's it going for you?
Good. I just played that Restored Republic, but I only played the first, minute or so where he said, this is going to be my last report. But it goes on to say, because, the RV has gone forward and everything has happened and you have to go to your redemption centers and so on. I also said, that it's also the end of the GCR, and because it's there. The way I see it, no one's told me this, right? I'm just taking from what they're saying there is that they're not going to give any more reports. and that being one of the main places the reports came out. And I assume this is from the military. Do you have any idea where that report comes from?
Well, my understanding is that the Pentagon / CIA MI6 PSYOPs group has been informed to stop, and they're being dismantled. So they were directly responsible for feeding everything with the GCR, and I believe that's the it's kind of like Intel Dinar Chronicles. Their direct connection is with the Pentagon. So,
well, at least they went out on a high note. They went out on a high note.
Yeah.
Yeah, the GCR is done. Go to your redemption centers, pick up your money.
Exactly. I mean, everything's great. The GCR's here finally.
Yeah. So I also said, when I first started, I said, that we were directly responsible for.
Right. Yeah, the publishing rights for the book for how Dan and Tank saved the world.
Here we go. It's like, I thought of another one, Dan and Tank's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah. I love it. I love it.
Excellent.
All right.
Dude. I don't know.
We have the same message, right?
Yeah.
If we go into the future and learn how to play the guitar, we're good to go. So.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I'll have to get out my air guitar. I have it around here somewhere.
I used to think about that all the time. That with time travel being possible, I always think what I would do is I'd put money places or put what I need, to get through the time.
Oh yeah, I needed the air guitar right over here.
Yeah, I need it.
There it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, this is actually very fantastic news, right? Because they're over. It's finished.
Well, you have things falling down all over the place, and I think that's where the real conversation is, right? Is Christine Blasey Ford came out and finally says, I mean, now, and I say finally, but in reality, these things could go on for years traditionally, right? So this it's not a long finally. I mean, this is like, wow, like this just happened.
Yeah, 6 months later.
6 months later, she comes out and she says she now remembers clearly. Right now, because she has a reverse memory system, right? Like she's getting better memory as time goes on, right?
Yeah.
And that's why when Kavanaugh came out, she suddenly remembered, when it was the opportunity to, bring down, and disrupt the agenda for hope and change. She remembered then, so she came out right then. And now that she realizes, oh wait, I could get arrested, she remembers, you know what? I misremembered. But now I remember it was clearly not him. It's like, you know what helped me remember it wasn't him? The clear evidence and discrepancies in her story, the fact that she used to train members of the MI6 for the CIA and the MK Ultra group, and that she actually trained someone on how to be a polygraph test. Those were the things that stood out to me, but whatever.
Yeah.
So that's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, she's definitely, was part of the CIA. And her coming out, and just all of the things that they came out with have failed.
Mm-hmm.
One right after the other. I don't know any successes that they've had. So it's interesting that it's being dismantled. We're saying that this cooperation between CIA, MI6, and whoever else you said in regards to this GCR, news channel is now, well, not just that channel, but their whole pushing of this information out is over.
Yeah, but that, by the way, I mean, I haven't confirmed that. I just got that information today, so take that with a grain of salt because I haven't confirmed it. I like that.
Okay, well, okay, we'll have a small celebration, and then tomorrow we can have a bigger celebration.
But I will say it does definitely seem to be right. I mean, that seems to be. Like, think about it. If the Pentagon has come on board and they realize they've been deceived by the factions of the Chinese elders, whatever else, right? The logical conclusion is that you're basically like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should stop all the corrupt things that we've done in their name, thinking that would get us ahead, right?
Mhm.
So that would make sense. And then I thought about this with because the Kavanaugh case, I have never been more engaged in political television, which is traditionally like horribly boring, right? Even the highlights are boring. So I've never been more engaged ever than when Kavanaugh was on, because I was looking at these characters from the Democratic Inquisition team there,
Sure.
and they were so transparent in the things they would say. They would come, and I kept hearing this over and over again. I just was laughing, right? The Republican side would come out and they would ask an intelligent question. And this is true. I'm not biased because, I really am not. Like, I just, it was just true. Like, they would come out and ask an intelligent question. Then the Democrats would come out, like Cory Booker, right? And be like, Mr. Kavanaugh, after the amazing, heroic, incredible, passionate, moving testimony of
Sport.
of Miss Ford, right? It's like they would have all this extra on there, and I'm like, it really wasn't that impressive to come out, whatever it was, 30 years later or 40 years later, and say that something happened right when someone's about to be confirmed. There's nothing courageous about that. You, like, you're part of a psyop. It's the most obvious psyops out there, right? And Feinstein, I mean, I feel like, well, again, they're guilty, right? The Democratic Party is showing, or the deep state really is showing, that we don't verify information, we create information, right? And because they create information, every time their story keeps falling apart. And instead of just
that's the whole thing. Whenever you are creating lies, right, a false reality, you continually have to build a whole world around it of more lies to support the original, and it always is being held up. And the truth just rests on its own, and everything around it supports it. So it's a lot of effort to create false realities and false narratives that now that they're not having success with.
Yep. And I mean, that's the thing, is that when you continually create a false narrative, you bring aspects of that into your reality, right? So it's
Right.
the power of the collective consciousness. So that's what they've done successfully for so long, because we all just followed like lemmings, just whatever they said, that's got to be true. And now the mainstream media is so tore up, right? I mean, it's so like just broken now. But I'm seeing it here in New York, right? Because New York's big. It's like the capital of liberal politics right now, and not like just being open-minded, but all these people that will just repeat why Trump needs to leave office, but they don't know why. So I always ask them why do you say that? What's your theory behind it? And I can't believe how many people jump to defend that we just legalized 40-week abortion at 40 weeks. Like, how many of them? And then when I say it to them, I ask them, I'm like, wait.
So I think when you talk about this and talk 40 weeks, you should really just redefine that to how many minutes after birth.
Right.
40 minutes after birth abortion. So, and people say, what? What are you talking about? Right? They say 40 weeks, and they don't think about what that actually means.
Well, and the reality is, I forget who the congressman who proposed it, but he proposed that if the baby survives the abortion and is born alive, to save that child, right? And what they say, he said this has nothing to do with women's health. So if it was a movement that was based on the concern over the woman's health, then why, if the baby survives, why would you kill it?
Right. Right. It's really puts things into context. It's exactly, the argument, right? It's always been the woman's well, the other woman's right to choose over her body, right? But it's out of your body now, right? So what is so if you're on the side of killing infants at that point, you're it's very very obvious that the argument is going to be extended, to, I said from 40 minutes to 40 days to 40 years when your parents decide, well, we really don't want you anymore. You've been living in our basement for the last 40 years. Why don't you go out and get a job? Never mind. I'm just aborting you. Right. Well, yeah. But the reality is it's not going to be about that, because as a baby is born, you get that birth certificate, and then whoop, you just turn it over to the state, right?
I mean,
So,
that's why they had to start it at the state level, right?
right.
So you think about it. No matter what, you basically said, look, they pretended like they're empowering women, right? They're empowering women to have control of their bodies, right? But in reality, what they did is they took all the power from both parents, because now babies born alive is dead. I mean, that means from birth they own us, right? They can sign us over, they own us, and they can kill us right then. There's no one to protect our children.
Yeah,
that's terrifying.
Yeah. Well, this can go very very deep into where they're going, but let's pull it back around over to our GCR topic for a little bit, because we have these signs of like the 2 trillion, right, that was put out there into, and then Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are all happy coming out of the White House. The very next day, Nancy is in horrible shape, right?
Oh yeah.
So they found out that money can't be used for the GCR. And who has that money? The military.
Yeah.
He also said that the Rothschilds called to get, hey, can you send us all that money? Like, can you imagine that phone call?
The way I heard it was they called and demanded to their, because remember they see them as slaves, all of us as slaves, but most particularly the military. They see them as slaves, and that's why they thought they had so much power. So that's why this is such a powerful moment for humanity to break through, because the very the those who they saw as slaves that were trained in combat, who held the weapons, who had access to information that we didn't have, who are supposed to be here to protect us, right? They're supposed to be here to protect us. And they never, but they never really could, right? They always had to follow orders. But for the first time, they stood up and said no. I mean, that changes everything. Like, no, we're not going to give you this money. So now what do? Now Steve Mnuchin is guilty. Here's something else too. Comey, right? He comes out and says, it's weird. It's like he's accusing the Russians of treason, basically, right? It's like, how can the Russians be guilty of treason, right? So he's basically saying that there's this whole Soviet scheme, and and they were working to influence the election, for one candidate. There's nothing illegal about that. Countries they're allowed to do that. Think about it. You can have a Facebook account. If you support a certain candidate, you're allowed to come out publicly and support a candidate. There's nothing wrong with that. So, but he's trying to he said that's treason. And I'm like, now that is where he gets himself in trouble. So he's basically talking about these actions, and the way he described it was that, we're going down this pathway, and he was defending the investigation. Well, he's basically saying that, like, the way he described it is what he's actually guilty of, right? Interfering with an election to favor one of the candidates, and he called it treason. So he is guilty of treason, and that's coming out in these reports here very soon. And I'll tell you what, they can't bring those out fast enough for me, as far as I'm concerned. I know there's timing games. Timing is all about negotiations they're doing behind the scenes. The cabal has no right to negotiate, and nobody in government who's on the good guy's side has the right to negotiate with them. These are people that see us as food and games and assets and cattle. They can't be in those positions anymore. It has to change. It has to.
They have to go. There an interesting. I also caught this. They were digging. Well, they were. I guess the Republicans were digging through the Mueller report and trying to piece things together from it. Right. Well, the Democrats aren't reading it, right? Because it doesn't matter. But what in their digging, they're finding out, for example, that one of the news articles that was in there was connected to someone who was in the Italian intelligence service. And Mueller did not disclose that. So they're using a report that's coming, from a news report that basically is based from someone who is in the intelligence service of another country, and he disclosed that. That's not proper. So they're up to, I believe, 3 sources in this report that were foreign intelligence services that had influence into making the report, the dossier, the Steele dossier.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, it's a report as well, but we're talking about all this information that came together from the Steele dossier. So they investigate, but they don't, but they're not, explaining what importance this one thing has. That would basically say, well, listen, there was Russian collusion, from this source, but they were colluding with Hillary. So now it's going to look like it's shaping up to where it's not that it was fake. It was actually Russian collusion on Hillary's side. She colluded with the Russians.
Right.
So this is going to be fascinating to watch. Where's the popcorn?
Well, I guess I mean I don't care. I mean I not that I don't care. What I want is results.
Yeah,
I don't care. I don't care about how it plays out. No, it's such a great mystery. While that's happening, you know what? Like people all over the world are in desperate need.
Yeah.
And because now here in the United States, you've got we're all we're watching this debacle circus, that used to be called the Congress and government and everything else in the media, right? And it's not even a good show anymore, right? It's not even entertaining in the sense that other than they're getting outed for things, but it's so disgusting that they continue to hold on to these, just awful lies. I mean, just holding on to them. It's like, just stop. All these things you set up, they're all going to come out. They're all going to come out because I guarantee you, Christine Ford there, I guarantee you, they got to her and they showed her. We know what you did. They intimidated her. They said, if you give us information on who paid you to do it, right? Because what happened was Kim exposed this, right? It's Blackstone, right, is the investment organization, right, which is a cabal, investment company. They put $1 million in Blackstone for Christine Blasey Ford just when this happened.
You know that they're the largest property owner in America?
Did you know that they don't own anything because they're a joke? Because all their properties they think they own are all in the trust. So,
okay,
that Blackstone. I'm just saying. But yes, I know that. I'm sure there's a report somewhere in documents. all types
Sure.
of
Okay.
things.
Bad. I'm bad. Why didn't I think about that?
No, I don't want to. You know what it is? I don't want to participate in the illusion anymore. I just want to expose it for what it is. It's like, yes, they had stuff, right? They controlled stuff, and all of that stuff has been foreclosed on. Like all the properties that were managed by the Rothschilds, right?
Mhm.
They technically owed money to the trust for all of the United Nations properties they owned, right? So Kim had a choice, and we talked about it. She's like, do I give it back to just select countries, or do I just divide all the money up equally among all the countries, right? And she foreclosed on the debt.
Because there's a couple of properties I was trying to get. That's how I know it was Blackstone that owned so many properties. I was actually came into a business deal when we were buying a hotel. Used to be a Ritz. The only Ritz Carlton that ever went bankrupt, and then but we were going to change the two hotels that are out at Lake Las Vegas into an educational center, for cooperative capitalism. So we were. That's how we kind of were getting into that. The purchase of the hotel. Um,
Cool.
and that's how we know. That's how it came up, and that's how I found out about Blackstone being the biggest property owner in the
Yeah.
in
In the illusion, right? Exactly. I know. Oh, it's just, all this stuff is just, it's so. At this point, we are entertaining something, and I'll tell you, I was really considering exactly the way this is broken down, right? Now, and this is, part of the reason why I'm such a big fan of Candace Owens, because she said exactly what they're doing, right? They don't they want to make it seem like, they want black people to feel like they're victims, right? So they don't, kind of come together and realize what they're doing. So they provide programs and, in welfare. And if you listen to the statistics that she lists off, it is horrible. I mean, it was like, I don't want to misquote it, but I mean, I feel like she said there was something like 70% of black kids are not reading at the appropriate grade level. Uh, it's There's more um, black children that are aborted in New York City than are born. I mean, just think about that. How is that even possible, right? Like, but there were so many alarming things that she talked about, and she's bringing attention to, and she's trying to get, the entire. That's what the whole Blexit movement's about, And I mean, and she is a Democrat, right? She's a conservative, but she's still. I mean, technically, she's still registered as a Democrat, and it was just it's so fascinating to me, like all these different ways they've weakened us, all these different ways they've tried to make it not okay, right? So now anything you say about almost anything, you're scared because you don't know what's going to offend someone, right? But you know what's offensive to me and should be offensive to everybody is ignorance. When you ignore the facts in front of you, they keep trying to portray like this whole idea behind portraying President Trump as a racist. There isn't a single ounce of evidence. Even the idea of being a nationalist, it's not. There is a white nationalist group, but there's certainly not an uprising happening right now in the United States. Not even close. If you have an uprising of anything, it's of paid actors pretending to be terrorist groups like Antifa.
Yes. Well, it's just like we brought up Gene Ho from who was his photographer in the White House and was there on the campaign. He just outlined it, and very credibly, and said, I'm with him all the time. He's not racist. And there's no one would say it. All right. So it's just a completely false narrative that they're trying to project. And it's the same playbook. Doesn't matter who the opposition is, if you think about it. If it's the Democrats are running against someone, they're always running against the same foe. Right? It doesn't matter the name of the person. Right? It's always the same. White nationalist, xenophobe, homophobe, so on, so on, so on. The same. Doesn't matter who it is. Yeah, they're always running against this fictitious enemy that they've created.
Yep. You know, there's a show out right now on Netflix, and my son's really analytical about shows, and it's this woman who's like a super hypochondriac, right? So she puts all of her hypochondriacism on her daughter, right? So her daughter's like, I don't know, 14 or something, and she's in a wheelchair. She's got braces on. She's got all this medication she takes. She's bald, right? You know, and she doesn't have a single illness, right? And the whole time she's drugged up, and she's got her in this, and so the kid ends up being resentful because the mother is making her feel disabled, right?
Right.
And she finally starts to realize she's not disabled, right? And she starts having like a secret Facebook page and relationships on the side, and eventually, I don't know. I think she ends up killing the mother or something, right? But it's but that is such a classic example, right? Really, of what they're trying to do to us. They're trying to make us all feel like we're disabled,
Right.
right? We can't function. We can't do things. We're not capable. We'll take care of you, right? And that's the big secret movement that they are constantly. That's why they're always playing the hero, right? Like, oh, we have to do this for people, like that's why they're trying to be, they're so heroic and letting every single, illegal immigrant across the border. It's like, what is the argument? There are laws that exist. Just enforce the laws.
Right.
So simple. So now with the GCR, I didn't get a chance to really absorb the rhetoric this weekend. Usually there's the big monster buildup. I'm sure that the Restored Republic. Now, she was told to stop doing the reports. She was not told because it's here. That's not what she was told. She added that part, or they added that
part. What else to say, right? Well, I was wrong. See you guys. No.
Yeah.
I'm out of here.
It's like, hey guys, as it turns out, all those people we've been bashing, they were right. I was wrong. Later. Yeah, and by the way, that is the right way to do it, because that's what I did. Right? When I was wrong, I came out and said I was wrong. That's what you do. Yeah. For future reference, anybody out there who was
in case you didn't know what to do, because you need a program to tell you what to do, we'll give you a program.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Admit that you were wrong, and say, "Oh, I'm so happy this is over because it just didn't make any sense."
Yeah. Right.
And now I know that the money is flowing in through the Manna World Holding Trust.
Yep. And that's where, that's where it's finally possible. So, there's a lot of things that are in operation right now with Kim and what's happening, but we are at a breaking point. I mean, really, for the human psyche.
Breakthrough point.
Well, I think we're both. I think we're at a breaking point for the cabal. I also think we're at a breaking point for the people. Yeah. So you end up having an option, right? You either get broken or you break through. So I think we're at that, kind of pinnacle moment where it's breakthrough time. And I don't see what else could really stop it at this point, because they've been exposed on all levels now. But gosh, I really hope they come out publicly and start making some real arrests. Even Hillary Clinton's losing it, obviously, right, when she's encouraging the Chinese to hack the IRS or whatever it is to get the tax returns from President Trump and all these things. There's a clear fracture in what they're doing, and the only people really left saying the same things are the ones who are like, they just haven't caught on yet. They're too far down the totem pole.
Yep. Well, they're I've got my people that I've been dealing with on this for a long time, and they're been in hot water and so one form of or another, and things just not moving forward. It had to. It was breaking down anyway, right? For regardless of what we've been saying here and it's trying to explain and pointing people in the right direction, everything within that system was not working out, right? So how many times can you literally, say, oh, it's today, right? And go on. So I think it's the people that have set up things are crashing down around them. A lot of people, they end up not making any money in their life because they're so focused on getting this set up because the money is tomorrow, right? And that's enough. I can survive until tomorrow. Right? And so all these things across the board, all the way up the chain, they're all in the same position of not doing anything and waiting for tomorrow. So that eventually starts breaking down, and now it's obvious, and when things like the 2 trillion hits the the Department of Defense, and then Trump and Pelosi and Schumer meet, and they're all happy, and the next day they're not happy anymore. What happened? Right? Well, they couldn't use that money for the GCR. And I guess Mnuchin, is he still in China?
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah, I haven't heard him that he's come back. I assume that would have been news, but negotiating with China. Well, here, speaking of that side of the world, and we have had another, kind of a saber rattling event from the deep state, right? They're trying to, push that Kim Jong Un has started, ballistic missile
Oh,
tests,
right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And some news is already filtering out that he didn't even know it was going to happen. It was kind of like he was kind of like surprised that they were doing a missile test, and he went forward and he did view it and he did participate because it was short range.
Right. Right.
But when did the news come out? Right after the conversation between Trump and Putin.
Right. Right.
Right? So this is timed, right? And it's time to so that they can say, well, oh look, Kim had a meeting with Putin. Trump spoke to Putin. Kim fired a missile. They're trying to basically again create that fear. Russia bad, Orange Man bad, Kim
Well,
Jong
I mean,
Un bad.
even whenever people refer to Russia as our enemy, why? What is it that people think is happening that Russia is our enemy? It is just not true. I mean, in reality, President Obama took 7 years and couldn't get rid of ISIS, and Russia took over and they got rid of ISIS in 1 year. 1 year.
Right.
Now, is the Russian military that much more efficient than our military? No. It's because we were. Here's what really happened. ISIS was a paid mercenary force, and as long as the deep state had the money to pay them, they stayed in force, right? Because there's always more guys who are willing to go, take a risk and die and set their family up, right? So that's what they were doing. So what happened was Kim cut the funds off, so they couldn't pay him anymore. So that got cut off. So once that got cut off, it was easy to take them out, right? They didn't have the ability anymore. All they had to do was just get them to burn through what they had, the weapons they had. I mean, and that's the reality behind what was such a big deal with Benghazi and Hillary Clinton, because the Clinton Foundation was cutting all these deals to sell arms for the Chinese elders to various terrorist groups to keep the world at war. Yeah. I mean, the Clintons goes so deep because you have to trace the Clintons back with the same kind of nonsense, right? Because you go back with the vaccines. They were the ones that made it so everybody would get free vaccines and force the MMRs to, happen. That was a whole, the Clinton when Bill Clinton was still in office, right? Like back to 1994. There was a big measles outbreak in 1996, and there were 0 fatalities from the measles. 0. There has been more deaths caused from vaccines, from the measles, from the MMR vaccine, than there ever has been from measles deaths from actual measles virus. Why would we continue to give that to people? And then even it's terrible. I mean, these guys they're getting exposed every time they turn around. They took a picture of this perfectly healthy baby, and they doctored it and added measles to it. Right? That's the kind of thing they do to scare people because it's so terrifying. And these are all the kind of, all this nonsense. And then, but there's evidence to show that by getting measles when you're a kid, it actually will fight cancer and builds up the natural immunity to cancer when you get older.
You have a stronger immunity because of it, right? Yeah,
Right.
and the old ways are best. If one kid has measles, send all the kids over to get it.
Yep.
Right.
You do chicken pox. Yep.
Yeah, same thing. Measles, chickenpox. You send them all there. Just not smallpox.
Yeah, smallpox is different, right? Not the plague or anything like that, but
yeah, Roy the plague. Yeah, Ebola.
Roy the plague.
Oh.
But
I think we can see that there's a lot of signs that this is changed, right? We're in a very interesting time. Oh yeah, it reminds me of Tui, right? Monday morning in the land of Fiji. Go ahead, I'll send Tui his link so he can jump on. It's a Monday, so yesterday was Sunday, so he was probably occupied, day off. So I sent that there. So I saw. So I'm sorry, Kevin. Kevin sent me a video. I was just interesting. There's a stuff about Ginsburg. So
yeah, where is Ginsburg? She's
Where's Waldo?
They're still incubating her clone, or what's going on there?
Yeah.
She died, right? She's dead. I'm pretty sure.
No, I think they have her on an iron lung, with some sort of,
iron
apparatus to keep her her systems flowing, right? But there's nothing left. Yeah, so that's what I think, but don't know. What I do know is that the sightings of her, where they're literally, it's provable that the images that they're putting out there are doctored images. They're not even very well done, right?
Well, the budget's tight, so it's a little different.
The budget's tight, and if no one looks. I mean, it's too late. Everyone that's an anon out there is going to dig into every photo, zoom in, look at the pixels, look at the boxes, and no matter how good you are, you leave signs behind. I used to do, messing around pixel by pixel way back in the beginning of time in regards to, creating images. I had a 3D animation company.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can find out what the different patterns of how things are, and it's so hard to change that. And then they have one of the comparisons I saw is they had an image of her from two different angles, where it's obviously her head was put onto another body.
Jeez.
Right? The whole head was replaced right onto this other body, but the head proportion was different on the two bodies, right?
Really?
So the head was oversized, and very obviously, that was an obvious mistake. If you took both pictures separately, you might not question the size of the head. But you put them side by side and say, well, that's not right.
Right. Exactly. All this stuff,
Yeah.
Indeed. So, I'm certain that people will start to be fully aware, as Tui always says. When they're fully aware, For some, it may be too late. But as of right now, you know what? I am certain that transfers will be going out tomorrow, and we'll see what the latest attempts from the banks to it's funny if you look at it this way. In some ways it would almost seem like it's playing into their favor, right? Because they're trying to crash the economy, right? So that's why the whole the GCR crowd is all excited, right? Because we were all trained, right, that we want the economy to crash first, right? So this is the narrative, right? You want the economy to crash, not realizing that people are going to lose their retirements. That this would be, if the economy crashes, it'll be a major part of the mass extermination project, right? Because you'll get rid of all of the elderly, anybody who's already retired and has no other source of income except for their retirements, because their retirements will be reduced to nothing. So, that's kind of their plan, right? And that was part of Obamacare too, right? To reduce, actually giving coverage to people that are elderly, because the logic was like, yeah, they're not going to live that much longer anyways. Might as well trim the fat. That's the way all these things are set up.
Yeah, death panels.
Yep.
Yeah,
The AMA designed they made vitamin B17, the known cure for cancer, illegal, and they implemented the long, slow death process. That's actually what it's called, the long, slow death process, and started used the Nazi scientists to create, treatments using radiation that cause cancer.
Yeah.
So that people would stay, just enough radiation to kill off the cancer, but not quite enough to kill you off and to keep you alive, but impossible to really recover.
I've dealt with a lot of people that had cancer, including my father, right? And he was resistant to the idea of using, say, cannabis, medical marijuana, as a solution. Now, I didn't. He kept his illness initially all hidden from me, and I didn't know. But I was involved in that medical industry, not heavily. I just knew people that were in it, and I would have recommended for him and everything. But he after he was in a gone through those treatments and everything, and but he had a very big problem. He was losing weight and he couldn't eat. And solved that problem. So that's why I started down that road. But dealing with other people that had cancer, and I saw people that wholeheartedly jumped into using medical marijuana and the tumors disappeared. Now I'm not talking about smoking it. That was not the answer. The answer was ingesting the oils that were prepared in the high dosages, and it actually provided. I don't know if it was vitamin B17, but I know of particular cannabinoids that were used to tell the cell to self-destruct, and literally the tumors would just melt away. And and I saw it again and again and again and again. But other people they were, even if I would inform them, hey, this happened, you want to talk to these people, since the doctor didn't tell them that it was okay,
Right.
they wouldn't go along with it. They were too afraid. Some doctors would say it's possible, and those people would jump into it, right? And they had positive results. You know, so there are cures, and the system has created a system. Like, come on, how long has this has been going on? Radiation. Does this sound right to you? They're going to use radiation, bombard your body with radiation, right? That kills your body, right? In order to kill, this particular part of your body that's run on that. Much better solutions are out there, right, to solve this. So, and I heard about vitamin B17, but I didn't know much about it. I know about other minerals also that were of help with uh, uh, with many different illnesses. So,
Yeah.
this is a new time, new world. we'll be able to express all these things. We just now have to change this existing structure of that's out there, that reality that's trying to make a long, slow death instead of a long, wonderful life. Yeah, yeah, we should be living much longer. 120 is the minimum.
I mean, yeah, like all these things. Bible scholars are always trying to explain away how Methuselah lived to be 987 years old, or things like that. It's I mean, Noah was building the ark for 120 years. I mean, so imagine 120 years of life where you were strong enough to build an ark with no crane, where you had to build everything from scratch,
Right.
And then live long enough to repopulate the earth afterwards, right? So, yeah, you think about all these things. The lifespan and the potential of humanity is so much greater than what we can even imagine. That's what they're stealing from us every day this goes on, right? It's this, to continue to keep this collective lie alive is the tragedy. Now, there's all types of people that they don't know, right? They're just covering their little part of the lie, and participating in a much grander scheme, to kill everybody. It's at some point when you realize you're part of the problem, you're part of contributing to the mass genocide of the planet. You have a moral obligation. I mean, if you are human and if you want to stay here, you have a moral obligation to change your course. It's not something like where, the people are heroic who did it. No, they're not heroic. I mean, all of us have to do that. All of us have to correct our course. We can't stay on something that is going to kill everyone else. It doesn't matter if we get an extra 3 years where our life is awesome, right? Like, that doesn't justify it, It doesn't justify it. So, and it wouldn't happen really that way anyways, but I think that's what a lot of people think, like, that it'll be okay for the next 2 years, or, and we'll figure it out when we get there,
Well, people are just act out of fear. They're afraid to make the change. They're afraid to move forward in a different direction that they don't know. Right? They don't embrace the unknown very well. It's more easier to say no. So that's people don't have to change. What they know, and that basically keeps them, in going down the path that they've been on.
Yeah.
Even the people on the GCR. They still, how much time they're going to keep going on waiting for the next intel report if it's not coming anymore from Restored Republic by the GCR.
Yeah, I think it's a very good sign. It's definitely indicative of what the State of the Union is. I saw this I don't know, broadcaster or whatever, journalist, so-called journalist from CNN, who's brokenhearted because she wants President Trump to face consequences so bad. That's all she cared about. She's so
he is facing consequences. The consequences of everything that he's doing, to remove the deep state. Right, everything. So he is facing consequences. It's just you don't know what the consequences are. You think that it's all about some fake illusion that everyone you've been following, these people that have been creating the same lie, same thing, same talking points over and over, with no proof about it, right? And when the reports come in, and it's not the first report. The Mueller report was not the first report. It's the third report. Right, that says that there was nothing there. So there was an initial report done by the House of Representatives. Then there was one done by the Senate, and now there's the Justice Department and the Mueller report.
Right.
So it's the third, and the fourth is coming this week.
Right. I mean, it becomes so obvious. It's like, hey, can we just focus on the actual? Because what has Congress done under Pelosi since they took over? Have they made any laws? Have they done the only law? I mean, everything they've done has just been how to get Trump laws. It's like, look, That's not our concern. If nothing else, Trump is fighting for the people. I mean, come on. Like, it is so pathetic that we're if you only get one side of the story, then if you continue to believe that, despite the FBI cleared him, now they're going to have Mueller come out. Oh my gosh, this is going to be a freaking train wreck, right? Because you're going to have Mueller come out, and whenever first of all, you can tell he's scared, right? So he knows better than to perjure himself. Because it would not surprise me if he perjured himself on the spot. I mean, they're going to have to get to a point where they actually take action. We got to stop just talking about like, oh, it's all going down. It's not all going down. It's not. Not until you actually start arresting people that we can see in the public eye. Because I get it. People were taken out of the treasury. I'm sure there was arrests made. Where? And for what purpose?
Right.
Arrest them. Show them. Like, because you know what? It's a lot harder to come up with your next plan to, incriminate, the president and bring him new false allegations, create fake dossiers when you're on the run. If you're on the run, that stuff stops, right? Because all you care about is saving your own tail. So right now, Hillary Clinton, why is she on talk shows at all? She shouldn't be talking to anybody except for, some prison guard isolated somewhere.
Right.
Like explaining, how she's a psychopath. Like, tell the truth. This network, they're not allowed to talk about because they'll ban it, right? Now, all these scumbags of YouTube, right? How dare you that there's a message out there, there's kids dying, and we're not allowed to say certain words because you'll ban it. You fraudulent punks. That is disgusting. The whole platform should be shut down if that's the case. Because if you would rather make money from the lives of kids being killed, you should not be on the internet. It should be outlawed. That cannot happen. We cannot support things that are killing our children. We just can't. These things ought to disgust people. There ought to be people up. About things that matter. Instead of, I love Candace always said that almost that exact same thing. She's like she wants the government to talk about and deal with things that actually matter, and she's right. If what you're doing never changes the outcome, if it's always the same mediocrity that reigns out, if it's always the same outcome, then we end up with a government divided, a bunch of public narrative about nothingness, right? They're arguing. They talk about Watergate. Honestly, who even cares about Watergate? They say and they talk about that being this huge scandal. Wasn't a big deal. Nixon wouldn't even got it in trouble if he would have just came clean. It was that he tried to cover it up, right? So now, all this stuff going on, it's like you had a president who was completely transparent in all of the investigations. He said, go ahead. He could have invoked all types of, presidential, privileges, and he didn't. He didn't do it. How can you be? And then, of course, he's going to say, he's screwed over because of this, right? He thought his presidency was going to end. Because think about it. They're attacking him and going after him, right? After things. And once they target you, we're all used to them winning. This victory for him is a victory for all of us. Because it says, look, you know what? They can't do this anymore. They can't just come and attack us for nothing. And then he gives us all the right to stand up for ourselves. Right? Because half the time, it's like when people get audited by the CIA, or not the CIA, the IRS. When people get audited by the IRS, usually the auditor doesn't even have the authority to take any action. They're just an administrator, right? But we wouldn't even have known that, right? We don't realize that our tax forms start with the letter B. Like, what's letter A say? Well, income taxes for government employees, and only during times of war. And they can't just take money from everybody. How did they get that right? How do they end up doing that? How do we all accept it as real?
Right.
all these things. Like the only way to get out of this is to stop playing the game. We
Right.
have to start calling things for exactly what they are. Like, this is fraudulent. You've had a fraudulent corporation, right? This isn't a conspiracy theory, but it is a conspiracy. Oh, you're not allowed to say conspiracy, are we? That's one of the other things. Good job, YouTube. Way to keep your journalistic integrity. Sham. Sorry,
That's
I'm
all right.
tired of these.
Well,
All these organizations staying in power. It's a waste. We are the ones who let them stay in power.
well, I know that there's some success on this matter by not playing the game, their game, but Pantero de Oro has they've been teaching people how to put themselves into a new standing, right? To get standing, in other words, to not not agree to be the debt of surety, right? And they have a system, and they end up making sure that they're the beneficiary, not the trustee. Trustee is responsible for paying all these things, and they put it back on them. So, well, the trustee is the president of the United States. That's the one. If you'd like, I can assign you, the auditor, as the trustee.
Yep.
Right, and you're responsible to pay. So you decide how much you're going to pay as the auditor.
Right.
And this is what they've been doing, and it's a system that's working because it is the actual ideas. Like, isn't everyone told, oh, there's a trust fund for you, right? There's a trust, right? It's your Social Security trust, and you're the beneficiary. They tell us, but then when they send you the forms and they're asking the trustee you to volunteer to be the trustee. Hey, I'm me. I'm the all caps entity. I'm the trustee of this all caps entity, and then you pay. It's legal because they're taking you at your word that you are the trustee, even though you're not.
Right.
So anyway, so that system is something that is working, and they also have their own society, which has this legal setup, right, for there to be a judicial system and everything else that they have put in place. So, just as these other secret societies that are out there, right, that are, they act and use these laws of the system, to not ever have to pay tax, right, because they're not going to volunteer, and they're not subject to these laws. That's how they remain outside of the law. So that's why they act with impunity when they go about doing these things, and they're untouchable, right? It's because they're not in the same system. They've removed themselves, and act as the beneficiary and not the trustee.
Yep. Well, you know what? The idea of them being untouchable, though, that is the thing that all of us, I think, is the most important thing to realize is no, that's not true anymore.
Right.
Because I know for a fact that Kim has records on all of these criminals, and she's given it to every intelligence agency, every police station, every major news source, right? They all have it. So I know that they're all, whoever received those documents, right? Whoever got that stuff, they are all guilty. So all of them right now who continue to allow this charade to go on, I know you've received the documents. So how could you ever convict any of us for anything? You're not even, and that's what they continually try to do. They try to find ways and loopholes, to bring charges up on people, right? Regular people. Like I keep going back to this hearing with Candace Owens because the guy there who was overseeing it, Nadler, right?
Yeah.
Nadler, I mean, it's a tragedy, such a joke, because Candace Owens, I mean, she reminded me of like a lion who's looking down a gazelle. She goes, "That's not what I said." She goes, "You didn't listen." And she looks right at him, and you can tell. And he kind of
Yeah.
goes, "Oh, okay,"
Yeah. Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of shrugs. He's
Yeah.
like, "Well, yeah,
Sure.
that's
Yeah.
true," but and because she was right. He didn't listen. Like he didn't pay attention to what she said. And so, but if you read in the very beginning, they show an obvious bias against her. They don't define any of the other witnesses, but with her, they made sure to define her as a conservative, right?
Right.
So they knew who to attack because that's what they were going to do, right? So we're going to take her out. We're going to make a scene. So Representative there, Ted Lieu, his pathetic self, right?
Yeah.
He knew like he was supposed to read off this little piece. He was going to have this little video clip, a little audio clip that was going to portray it as if what Candace Owens said was pro Hitler, right? And then he turns and asks one of those stupid loaded questions, right? That only really has one answer. Turns to whoever the other woman was, is does it create more bias in the white national movement
Right.
when one of your conservative candidates promotes or justifies the actions of Adolf Hitler? But that's not what happened.
Right.
It was so awful. And most of the time, people get shut down by somebody. But she called him out on it, right? But it was such an awful question. It was like, you're obviously, but you're not looking. Now, there was other congressmen there who asked great questions and who were unbiased. And they just, they really wanted to understand, which is what that was supposed to be about. It was supposed to be about to understand what was going on with the rise of white nationalism and all of that. You'll notice the only reason why white nationalism is even being discussed is because President Trump came out and said, "I'm a nationalist." He also said, "We're sovereign." You know,
Why,
that's
why,
it.
why don't they say the white nationalist socialists?
Good point.
Because, yeah, because they want to compare to Nazis. Nazis were socialists,
That's right.
right?
Yep.
But they don't want to bring that part up. They don't want to.
Right.
They want to redefine what Nazi is because it's a bad label, right? Okay, we're now going to redefine it, but it doesn't mean socialist because we're all social. All the Democrats are all socialists, right? So they don't want to demonize being socialist. They just want to demonize being white and a nationalist. Someone who
Right.
is for their country is now a problem. And if you're white, now what's the problem being white?
Well, that's the efficacy of using a shame technique, right? Where they've spent at least the past 40 years shaming people for being white, right? And also at the same time making trying to make the entire black population feel like they're victims, right? That's why they need reparations, they need welfare, and they should be entitled to this and that. And you know what? And I'm not saying they should or they shouldn't. I don't have an opinion on it. The point is the reason why they created those things was to create the illusion that I'm doing something for you, right? The same way vaccines, right? Because this is proven now too. They've been doing this in Africa for a long time, but this last one was pretty recent that they showed when they were imposing these measles vaccines in Africa in places that had not had a single case of measles in 20 plus years, and they forced them that in this was a some element of that caused infertility. So what they were doing is they were chemically castrating and making the women infertile, right, with this vaccine intentionally, because the only people that could get the vaccine were or the people they were targeting for the vaccine were people who were of childbearing age. So they took the vaccine and they went in and they took all these people out in Africa. And who was it funded by? It was funded by Bill Gates, right? So
Yes.
Bill Gates is openly in the TED Talks, right, which is like the clever ways to present the cabal agenda talks now,
Right.
and he gets up and talks about why we have to why we have to reduce the population, because they're telling us what they're doing, then they're poisoning us, right? Because we don't do anything about it. So those are the kind of things that need to be, those options need to be out there, where if you're vaccinated from the measles and I'm not, Well, then the only one in danger should be me.
Right.
So why would I be forced to get a vaccination unless you're trying to infect my system with.
Hello. Hello. Well, I think we lost Tank. Tank. This is space control to Galactic Unicorn. I'm in Galactic Unicorn. It's a space command to Galactic Unicorn. Well, he may not know he's not on, so I will eject him. So, well, or maybe they just don't want that topic being spoken about, which is probably part of it. This is a this this has been going on also with that same I think that same story that he was talking about in Africa is the women for this were getting this treatment, over and over and over and over again. It wasn't just one vaccination. They had to come back and get the same thing over and over and over again. So it was something that is, just it seems like the experimental, right? That they're doing these experiments to figure out what's the best way to make everyone infertile. My daughter has a business, an ultrasound business, to show babies before birth, where you go in, and so doctors will send their patients to my daughter, so she'll do the ultrasound in her business. And it's very wonderful technology. My daughter is actually pregnant with my second grandchild, and she showed me the picture, and it's in 3D, and it's amazing how vivid the images are now. Literally, uh, you know, it's almost like it's not it's already born. It's not inside; it's outside already. The baby's already born in this photo. So it's amazing that. But she's also dealing with a lot of people that are trying to get pregnant, and that they're not able to. She has experienced that the people are now taking specialized drugs to get pregnant because they're not able to conceive. So this is something that is spreading. I saw some estimates that said that within 40 years, we will actually have 80% infertility. Now, that's not an accident. That's a plan. It's happening. So how take action to stop these things. This should be something that people really march in the streets about and go after the people that are doing it. If Bill Gates is out there speaking about it, there should be protests about that speech. The people that are there, they should also be who invited them to speak about it. Should also be protests. Why would you invite someone to come and talk about depopulating the planet? It's a lie that we're overpopulated. We're just too much for them to handle. The herd is too big. It doesn't want to listen to the masters. So they want to make sure that the herd is called, and they use it as a resource. Now bio sludge is now legal to be used for fertilizer. What is bio sludge? People mulched and used as fertilizer. So this stuff is happening all around us. This is stuff that has to stop. and we're the ones that have to take the action. We have to do it. The simple things, spread the videos. What I've been asking you to do, and Tui as well. Tui's been very good at saying, "Hey, spread the video, but do your own video. Invite your friends to listen to you talk straightforward to them, just like this. And if we have to come up with alternative language to talk about the issue so that we don't get blocked, do that." Because your friends can tell friends, can tell friends, can tell friends, can tell friends about what the topic is, and you don't have to touch those taboo words that get us for being blocked from getting the information out. We're smarter than the AI. We can make the things happen that we need to have happen in this world. We just have to take the action. You know, that's the reason for this broadcast. Make things happen. You know, taking credit for stopping the GCR. I'm doing it in a lighthearted way, right? But did we have an impact? Yes. Is everyone going to agree that GCR is over? No, because people don't like to admit even when things change, that it's not that their road is that they've been on is wrong. They go through the 5 stages of grief. Right? They're going to deny. They're going to deny it. No, it's not that way. The GCR is on. Look, it's tomorrow. Then they'll be angry when they know that it's not happening. So we can see that this is just starting. If we're the first out there, really doing this, Thomas Williams has been doing it for over a year that I know. Tank has been doing it in his and telling people that it's not. I only started getting awoken to it by not I didn't suspect, but I didn't have the back story to know this is what actually is happening. What makes more sense? What is happening? Because we know that the world is crashing, right? Or that system is crashing. We can have an alternative system. See, that's the thing that they don't want us to know, is that we can create our own system. It's because we're the ones that are doing it. As I've been involved in this cryptocurrency for the last 3 years, the TBC coin, Kringle coin, with the complete focus on creating our own economy. Not market-based coin, not part of their stock market style, forex trading style system, which is controllable, which is run by greed, which is a system that removes money from the people that participate in it. You all think you can win, but everybody loses, except for the very few that really, take it on as a science, become day traders and make money at it. But most people are not that. And so the people that lose are feeding the people that are winning. And the people that win are a very small group. So not participating in that system, that isn't good for everybody. It's good for a few. We don't want that system. So we've taken it on our own to go ahead and set up our own system, right? Own ideas on how these things are to benefit everybody. Now, it's not easy, but we made the effort. So there are big pushes and millions of people that are participating. So we can do it. We can create our own economy. And that's what they don't want us to know. And with this whole change, since all of the asset was successfully moved to the hands of one, it's just not the one they wanted or thought that would have it. Kim now has it, and they don't like it. So they're going through the 5 stages of grief. They've been in denial. And now they're throwing their tantrum. They're angry. So now we're going to have a new system. We have the big guns have come on board. The U.S. military is supporting us. They're now pulling out of the GCR plans. They're not going to be putting out these intel reports anymore. Shut it down. Why? Because that plan is over. It's not the way we're going. We're going towards abundance. We're going towards life. We're going towards developing our own system that is for everybody, for life. We are in the position because we've taken steps. We've done small tasks. Every day, one small thing. Let me look. 69 likes. 215 people watching. Why are you not giving a like? It's a small thing. Who hasn't given a like on this broadcast? Go ahead and like it. It makes a difference. Share the video. Subscribe. Tell others to do the same. Make your own video. Participate. You know, I've been spending all this other time that I'm not doing this and trying to handle things, is working on a website to help organize, so people will have a place to try and organize this information from. It's virtually done. Yeah. There's still some things that have to be tested out. There's a social networking part of it, right? There's forums that people can interact and bring information on. It's divided up into categories. So so I'm not going to ask people to run to it today. Maybe tomorrow, but the purpose is to help bring people together so we can work towards this goal. Oh, I forgot my camera was off. So anyway, this is something that is happening right now, and we have to embrace it and rejoice in everything that we're able to do now. It's an amazing time in history. Yes, these negative things are out there, but they're not going to change unless we take action, which we do these small things. Participate in the small steps, and if you do a small step every day, it builds. And I say, 2 months ago, when we started this, that we'd be talking about, the end of the GCR coming and having this, because, the military has switched gears. Did we have any influence on that? 100% we did. Your participation, your spreading this helps change the reality. It starts with just your thoughts, your feelings. Neuropeptides are created in your brain, and you actually take actions, and those actions reflect in the world. They vibrate out into the world, changing the vibration. We do it all together. We concentrate and we focus our energies, and then it just spreads like a wave. We're replacing this deep state cabal agenda, step by step. Yeah, I'd wish things had stopped just like that. All of these other agendas, depopulations, vaccines, all these. The list can go on and on. I wish we could just stop it in 1 second. If I had a button, I'd press it. Don't have a button. What I do is I have my voice. I can speak. I can express to people that please get involved and do something as well. Do your own video. I'll go on your video with you. I'll help you. I'll hold your hand to do your own channel. Tank will come on. I'm sure Thomas will come. I'm sure there's a lot of people that want to participate, and everyone has a different piece. We have Josh that's been working on removing implants and defense systems against this technologies. Great. These systems will be of great importance. Even to know that it exists at that level, you can tell that the secrecy in which they've been keeping things, the extent of that secrecy, because what's in front of people's eyes is only what's on that screen on the TV, and they just let the other things go. They're worried about their bills. They're worried about how do they pay their bill, how do they get food, and they're not focused on what's actually been happening. Yes, they tell us because it's part of their rule book, part of free will. We just have to accept it. When we don't do anything against it, we're accepting it. We have to do things to change it, and that means we participate. We come together, focus on where we are alike, what our goals are, what we want. I love the goals that Tank put out there: clean air, clean water, clean food. We all agree this should be clean. No GMOs, no fluoride, no poisons, no artificial sweeteners, because it's poison. We can do this. So we just need to take action and make something happen. Well, I think we should end this broadcast for today, and we'll look forward to tomorrow. It's going to be another fantastic day. Good things happening. The GCR ended today. So I'll take a couple of extra steps here, and I just want to say the links are down below for you to participate in joining with Go Camelot, for you to join with me and partnering in the Kringle Society, for us to work on projects together. My contact information is down below. All you have to do is participate. So please take some steps and work on these things. With this, I'm going to end this broadcast, and I want to thank everyone for participating. Thank you. And indeed and in will, we will make our abundance-based work. Bye-bye for now.